Hey everybody, I'm sitting here with my first manager and my lifelong friend of 20 plus years in the music business, legendary music attorney, and just all around incredibly great guy, Chris Taylor.
Hello, everyone.
I'm going to give a brief history of Chris's path. Most notably, for many, many, many years, he was Drake's attorney, worked with other incredible Canadian artists as Canadian artists began to become known throughout the world. People like Sum 41, people like Avril Lavigne. You can probably name drop a few more pretty incredible ones too, Chris.
Nelly Furtado.
Oh, yeah.
She was really my first.
Amazing.
I have a special place for her in my heart.
Well, and
3 Days Grace.
And that's the end of our podcast, because this can go really long. So I wanted to ask you a few questions, Chris, because I think that sometimes people don't really understand especially as a lawyer, when you're shopping clients. So maybe the first thing is, explain what shopping an artist or shopping a song is.
You know, it's all, I say that's almost a dying art form. You know, there was a period of time where that's all I was doing. You know, when I started practicing in 97, right up until about 2004, I was going to New York and LA on a regular basis and meeting with A&R people, the people that sign bands at labels, and playing them recordings from CDs. I actually had a CD wallet I would walk around Manhattan with and pull out the CD and play them a song from Nelly Furtado, play them a song from Sum 41, and try to get them to sign the band. You know, show them a photo, tell them a little bit about the artist. And lawyers really played an integral role in that regard. There's probably a group of about 20 of us that were doing that pretty actively around that period of time. Sometime around 2004, I noticed it started to tighten up a little bit with the internet, because A&R people and research departments could go and find out what was going on all over the world, tracking what was going on YouTube or SoundCloud or different platforms. So I started...
MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace. So I would call, I'd be like, start showing up at record company office and be like, hey, I got this band from Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah, we already know about that. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, I got this band from Quebec City. And they'd be like, yeah, we know about that one too.
Right.
And be like, damn. And then they started asking questions like, how many followers on MySpace, how many, they started asking about statistics and data, and the whole process really became data and research driven, to the point
13 years ago, you're saying?
Yeah, right around 2004. There was still a bit of it, and there's still a bit of it today, mm-hmm. but it's 10% of what it was before in terms of a business.
So this is interesting, because I think that sometimes people would look at you and the success that you've had, and even me to a degree as a songwriter and the success I've had, and I'm not sure that they really understand the level of no's, how many no's that we get versus the few yeses that we get, and understanding that the yeses are what push your career forward, and the no's are many. There's a higher ratio of no's to yeses. How do you deal with the no's? How do your clients deal with the no's?
Yeah, I mean, in our business, like any business, you talk about the yeses and the highlights. So nobody brags about how much they failed at things. So you talk about a Nelly Furtado, you talk about a 3 Days Grace, you talk about a Drake, but there's plenty of other artists that didn't make it, didn't get signed, never really got a shot, no matter how much I believed in them.
Well, Drake is a very interesting example, if you don't mind me interrupting you for a
mm-hmm.
moment, because we all know Drake now, but not a lot of people realize where Drake came from, came from a kind of a cult-ish Canadian television program. He was basically a kind of a TV celebrity in Canada who now became one of the most important rappers in modern music. You were there basically throughout that whole transition. Were there challenges there?
I remember I first heard about Drake on MySpace. Speaking of MySpace, you remember they used to do the top list, like there'd be the top independent or top unsigned list. I'd be like, who the fuck's this Drake kid from Canada? Like he's number one, like every week he's the top like unsigned MySpace artist. I didn't really know who he was, and then people were like, oh, he's on a TV show. And he's sort of working with 40 and that camp, and they're working on some songs and stuff. And it, I think people wanted to kind of put him in a box a little bit. And it's like, well, he's not a real rapper then. He's an actor who has a bunch of fans who like him for
he's
that.
so credible.
Well, he's the most credible.
That's right.
He's by far, he's on his way to maybe being the greatest of all time. Depending on how you evaluate.
They call it the GOAT. By the way, the kids call it the GOAT.
Yeah, that's how I'm aware. I am aware. My 18-year-old son reminds me of that. But really, he staggered a little bit. I think he was trying. He told me he had been to New York a couple times for label meetings, Canada for label meetings, couldn't get a deal. And what really sort of pushed it over the edge was that there was a friend of Lil Wayne's. This is all publicly out there if you research it. There was a friend of Lil Wayne's that gave him the CD, told him a little bit about it. Wayne took an interest, and they flew Drake down to hop on the tour bus with Wayne.
Just to hang out.
Yeah, out of the blue. I think Drake got a phone call or something from that camp, and the rest is kind of history. That's when they called me. I think once they started really getting serious industry interest, that's when he came into my office. That was probably like mid 2008, just before.
Ironically,
Far Gone.
And ironically, a year before that, had he come into your office, you probably would have maybe. Well, actually, I wouldn't say you wouldn't have paid attention. That's probably not a fair thing to say, because probably more than any other music attorney I know, you always led with the music. The music was always your passion. It was not really the business. I think the business came later. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree.
Right.
It had to be there, and I always had an open door on the hip hop side. I've represented. I think almost literally up until that time, had represented every single hip hop artist in Canada.
Toronto had a strong, Canada, but Toronto especially had a very strong hip hop community.
We did, we just never got the cosign, and the cosign, was so important in that day, especially if you're Canadian. It's like people wanted to put you in the Canada box, and it's like, yeah, Chaclair or Socrates, or even Cardinal, or
I worked with all of them too.
There's a huge list. They were all clients from Rascals, Chaos. Yeah. I tried to get record deals for all of them, and the door didn't really open up until what happened with Drake.
I want to kind of fast forward a little bit, and kind of I have two quick last questions. The first question is, so now you've managed to navigate throughout your career. You started, well, first of all, not a lot of people realize this, and we're not going to mention the band because we don't want your YouTube numbers to jump. But Chris was the lead singer and had a hit song in Canada with a reggae rock band signed to, I think you were signed to Virgin, right, or EMI?
Virgin, yeah.
Virgin, and then transitioned into being a lawyer, and now is the global president of E1 Music. Did I get that right?
Yep. Very good.
So not really practicing law, but you've sort of elevated into a different phase of your career. Kind of keep it brief, but explain now that you're on the other side. The lawyers are now coming to you with the deals.
Sure.
And explain a little bit what your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, about just over 2 years ago, I sold my practice, and I had an independent record company and management company that I sold to E1 and moved in to be the global president. So we're a music division in a larger studio media content company. Over $1 billion market cap. We're listed on the London Stock Exchange, so we make movies, television, kids entertainment. And the music division is... there's 3 or 4 parts to that. The recordings. We do recordings in almost every genre, from heavy metal to gospel. I say from heaven to hell. And then on the management side, we have an artist management roster of about 45 to 50 acts. and then we have a music publishing division. And recently we just brought in a live division, which is based out of New York. So promoting, producing live events, exhibits, and things like that.
Well, and I think you're undervaluing because that didn't exist before you came here, as far as I understand, right?
E1 was...
E1 existed, but I'm
yeah.
saying all of those facets of the music division didn't exist.
Yeah, the management part for sure. We weren't in the... E1 wasn't in the management business before. Music publishing was a really sort of an ignored part of the business. And then the live part was not here. So you're correct. Yeah, 3 of those legs were not here really before I got here.
Incredible. I'm just going to ask you one more question. Do you ever foresee a band reunion?
We do.
Would you like to tell them the name of your band and the?
I was in a band called One, O-N-E, and I don't think I could do a full set. I'm too much of a perfectionist, but if I was asked to do a song,
yeah,
I'd be up for that, and I suspect we'd do that again at some point somewhere for
Amazing.
fun. We did a little mini reunion probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was just 2 songs. That was pretty easy. Nobody got hurt.
Thanks so much, Chris. My good friend Chris Taylor, thanks for taking the time, buddy.
Thanks, Justin.
All right, we're shaking hands.
All right.